Welcome to Adobe Photoshop CS6, which is the latest version of Photoshop. And what we're going to do in this video is take a quick look at the workspace. So to start with, we have our menu across the top, which most software has. So it's got the typical file with its different open, close, save, import, export, with a few other ones, of course, specific to Photoshop. We have edit as well, which has your typical cut, copy, paste, and so on, but also has some other ones specific to Photoshop. And then, of course, we have image, and that allows us to adjust the image size, the canvas size that you're going to draw or paint on, and then things like crop, rotate, and so on. Our layer palette, Photoshop works in layers, which is one of the great features of Photoshop. So you're able to draw multiple different drawings and put them all together into one. And so there's a lot of different tools and adjustments that you can do with your layers. The type one, of course, is for typing, and so you have a lot of different options there. Select, Photoshop has a variety of different selection tools like the lasso and the marquee and the magic wand. And so it creates selections which you can then move or draw in, and that allows you to adjust and modify the different selections with this menu. Filters are pretty fun. There's a lot of different filters there, and they're basically special effects that apply to either your selection or your whole drawing or your layer. And so there's a lot of really fun things that are really common in a lot of apps today that you'll get. That Photoshop really was one of the ones who began all that. So we'll take a look at some of those later on. You have a 3D menu if you're going to work in 3D drawing. The view menu has things like zoom in, zoom out, fit. You have rulers which allow you to measure, and guidelines that you can drag out from Photoshop and use to kind of organize things. And so you have this thing called a snap, which allows you to really line things up perfectly according to either guidelines or grids or rulers. So that you have that feature there. And then the Windows menu, that's where all the different palettes and tool wells are. So for example, if I want to edit my paragraph that I've typed in, I can do that with there. I've got my brush palette. And so the ones that are checked are the ones that are there. So there's my tools, which is this bar over here, and just allows me to call up what I need at the moment, because there's a lot of them, and hiding them is advantageous in terms of being able to work. The workspace menu here really controls the view of your whole Photoshop experience. So right now I'm in Essentials. If I wanted to work in photography, I could click on photography, and what it'll do is it'll rearrange to some degree what I view over here in my palette well, as well as some things down here. I can also go here to this menu to choose. So if I'm going to do painting, it'll load up a bunch of different ones, like all the brushes, some of the presets, and some swatches. And then I have this bar here as well, which is my brush palette, and as well as my history, and I can open and close that with this little double arrow here. Same with this one, I can hide that so I have more space to view my actual document. Okay, if I'm working in animation, so for example the 3D, my timeline is down here, so I can open up that timeline and view it and close it. So clicking on these tabs here will open that up. So it just depends on what I'm working on. We're going to do some photography mainly, so I'm going to call up my photography workspace, and these palettes over here are just basically tools you can use to work and adjust your document. Probably one of the most important one is the layers palette, so that shows you all your different layers. You've got some tools down here, so for example if I want to add a new layer, I can do that and then edit that and draw on that, and it will only affect that one layer. So as we go through all the different tools and palettes, we'll take a look at that in more detail, but that's what we mean when we talk about palettes. They're over here. This is your workspace, so you have a ruler. I can drag guidelines out to line things out from both rulers, and that helps me with designing my page. And of course I can use the rulers and a little bit of math to exactly space things out if I really want to. If I want two equal spaces, I can create that using the rulers and guidelines. So the last thing we'll talk about in this is creating a new document. So I'm going to go to File. I can go to File, Open, and open up a picture I've already drawn or photograph. But File, New opens up this window. So the first thing I can do is put in a title, whatever it is I want. Then I have these presets. So I can do US paper, and it will go to inches and width and height and resolution. If I go to web, it will work in what are called pixels, and Photoshop is a pixel based drawing program, when pixels are basically little tiny squares of color that are used to create whatever it is you see in Photoshop for the most part. So that's web. You can see that there's different preset sizes here you can choose from. You got some defaults there, and then of course you can type in your own numbers as well. So if I want a document exactly that size, I can do that. The resolution, basically the bigger number, the higher quality print you will have when you print out the picture. Visibly you won't notice a lot, but when you print it out you certainly will notice the different resolutions. So for printing, 300 is the minimum, and that's in pixels per square inch. I can change that to centimeters if I want to, and then it'll be an even higher resolution. Color modes, there are 5. So we have the old black and white called grayscale. I have RGB, red, green, blue. CMYK is the kind of the common print mode that you want to be in. It has better coloring, lab color, and bitmap coloring. Again, just different ways to create color in Photoshop. Then I have 8-bit, 16-bit, and 32-bit. Generally speaking, the higher the number, the better quality. I can choose my background contents. Generally speaking, I start with transparent, but you can choose white or whatever the background color is. So that's over here. This button here is my background color, so if I chose background color, it would be white. The color profile, we'll leave it as is, but I can change that if I want to one of these. But no need to do that. I'm going to change it to CMYK, and you'll notice that it'll automatically go to the default one, which is the US web-based one. You can choose whichever ones you want depending on where you're from, but we'll just leave it as is. It's pretty good. Pixel aspect ratio, we'll leave it at that. Square pixels is good. But if, for example, if you were working in NTS widescreen, creating, say, an image for a DVD menu, then you would want to choose that if that's the video that your movie was being filmed in. So that is our window for opening up the new document. I click OK, and it will create the new document, and these checkerboard gray and white mean transparent. Obviously, you can't make a computer monitor see-through, so that's the way they show transparency in Photoshop. So we have our menus, our tools down the left. So they're all grouped together. We'll go through them one at a time, but these are all the different drawing tools that you have, and selecting tools, manipulation tools. And then this toolbar up at the top here is my tool options bar. So for every tool, so for example, my brush tool, if I want to choose a different brush, I have lots of different options here. I can choose that, its size, and so on, and then I can draw with that brush. So different options for different tools. They change depending on the tool that you're working in. This is where I can choose colors. So you can see the different modes here, and I can click and drag, choose basically between millions of colors, and it will load up that color there, and I can paint with that. Again, the palette well is over here, so all the different palettes are there. If I call up a new one, like color, it will either pop out from the palette well, or if it's not stored in the palette well in that workspace, it'll open it up in something else. So styles, do I have styles? Yep, there it is. You can see it will open up the different ones there. Let's see, paths is there, paragraph, notes. Okay, so I have pretty much all of them loaded up. They can be moved around, so if it does open up over here, I can drag and drop it. You see it goes semi-transparent, that blue line appears, and I can place it in the palette well and then just click on the ones I want. So that's the workspace. Next we'll take a look at the tools.